Ooh, countdown.
Mm-hmm. Hello, welcome to another program from the Maryland STEM Festival. This is our STEM-powerment program, which is geared for middle school girls to show them that they can succeed in the world of STEM, and the world of STEM should and can include them. I have an esteemed panel here that we're going to discuss their careers, their backgrounds in STEM, and their interest in STEM. So we will start by going around and asking each person, each woman, their name, their day job, and who they work for. And I'll start with Cherry. Why don't you tell us?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Charity Whedon. I'm the Vice President of Global Space Policy and Government Relations for a company called Astroscale US. I work here in Washington, D.C., just outside Washington, D.C., in Silver Spring, Maryland. And our company is looking to clean up space debris and bring on-orbit services to space as well.
And when you're not speaking, please mute yourself so there's no feedback or extra sound. So, Brenda, why don't you go next?
Hi, my name is Brenda Guan. I am a civil engineer in a design industry. So I do a lot of stormwater management, erosion sediment control, and site design work.
Thank you. Landy, would you like to go next, please?
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I am Landy Jackson James. I am a cybersecurity innovation strategist at the Food and Drug Administration in White Oak, Maryland. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Michelle, why don't you introduce yourself? And unfortunately, Michelle's having a little technical problem with the camera, but we are still very happy she can join us and talk to us. Michelle?
Thank you. Yep, I'm Michelle Gilio. I'm an associate professor at the Institute for Genome Sciences at the University of Maryland, Baltimore.
Thank you. Staff Sergeant Umer, would you like to go next, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Aisha Umar. I am an enlisted soldier, so I'm a staff sergeant in the Army, and I am actually a software developer for the Army.
Thank you. Tara, would you like to go next, please?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Tara Pergerson. I'm a cyber systems security engineer at Lockheed Martin.
Thank you. And we actually also have a student who has a very interesting background already, so thought it'd be interesting for her to talk about some of her experiences. Archie, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Archie Marapu. Thank you so much for having me. I am a 14-year-old, and I'm a student at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology.
Thank you. So the next question I'd like everybody to answer is just a little bit about background, where you grew up, where you went to high school, and where you went to college. Tara, why don't you go first?
Sure. So I pretty much grew up in the central Anne Arundel County area. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. So I'm closer to Annapolis area. I primarily reside in Millersville, Maryland, where I also went to high school. That was Old Mill High School. And then following the high school, I went to Stevenson University in Owings Mills.
Did you go to Old Mill Middle School?
I did.
Yeah, because I have, I don't know if she was there when you were there. Do you know Mary Hartman?
Is she a teacher?
She's a teacher there, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm familiar.
Work very close with her. They've been very involved with the STEM Festival.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Landy, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. I grew up on St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. I left there. Actually, I started my college career there at the University of the Virgin Islands and transferred out to Georgia State University. That was my undergrad. My graduate degree is from University of Phoenix. I currently live in the DC area. I've been here for the past 9 years, transferred from CDC, from Centers for Disease Control, there to the Food and Drug Administration.
Great, thank you. Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up in high school and college, please?
Sure. I grew up in Frederick, Maryland, which is about an hour west of Baltimore. And I went to high school at Thomas Johnson High School and then went to college at the University of Maryland, College Park. and followed my bachelor's degree with a PhD at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine.
Did you go to Thomas Johnson? You went to Thomas Johnson High School, you said, right?
Yeah, TJ as it's known in Frederick.
That's, yeah. My mother taught in Thomas Johnson Middle School in PG County, so I want to make sure it wasn't. Okay. So thank you. Charity, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, so up north. And I went to a high school called Ross Shepherd. And I joined the military, the Canadian military, right out of high school. So I went to what is our service academy. It's all in one in Canada, called Royal Military College of Canada in Kingston, Ontario. Graduated with a mechanical engineering degree there. And then later on, further in my career, went back to school and did a master's degree in space studies at the University of North Dakota.
Thank you. Staff Sergeant Umar?
Yes, so I went to school in Florida. Specifically, I went to Gibbs High School in Pinellas County, Florida. I went to college at UF. I had a 2-year basketball scholarship for junior college at St. Petersburg College. Then I transferred up to the University of Florida, go Gators. Got my degree in civil engineering, but then I made a career change and came over to the Army and enlisted as a cyber specialist.
What year did you join the Army?
2014.
Okay, great. Brenda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I actually grew up in China, and I also went to high school in China. I also went to undergrads in China. I went to Shanghai Maritime University. Then I came to the U.S. for grad school. I went to University of Pittsburgh.
Do you get back to China much?
Get what? Go
Do
back?
you go back to China very often?
Not ever since the pandemic started.
Well, that's true. Very few of us, well, I haven't been traveling, and a lot of people haven't traveled since the pandemic.
Yeah.
Archie, can you tell a little bit about yourself, please? A little bit more?
Yeah, sure. I am located in Northern Virginia, specifically in Chantilly. And as I mentioned, I'm a freshman in Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. And yeah, obviously I have not gone to college yet, but that is in the plan.
Have you given any thought to where you want to go?
I would be my dream college to go to Harvard, but I will work for that.
Yes, it's a challenging school to get into. So I'd like everybody to talk a little bit about what their typical day is like, what they do during their job, their tasks, projects, tools they use. I'll start with Tara.
All right. So typically, a lot of times I work in between our systems lab. I do a lot of engineering, kind of working with the data frames, things like that. I work with the architecture of our system as well. That's kind of one of the newest tasking and day-to-day things that I look forward to. So that's kind of a new tools that we brought into the program to work with. We kind of talk more with our customers on a day-to-day basis. I go back and forth from one of our other sites to in Hanover area. That's primarily where I'm located. So I go over to that site and then I'll work doing a lot of lab work, like I stated. And then when I do get the days that I can work from home, I do enjoy the systems architecture. So that's the design of the entire system. That's the framework from the back end and the front end, kind of coming up with a blueprint almost of what our final project would look like, down to, you know, floor plans and things like that for a lab, for a system, just the overall breakdown of how the hardware engineers will implement this as well.
Now, when you say lab, I'm sure you're talking about a room full of computers, not a room full of Bunsen burners and test tubes.
Yes, so not a scientific lab, more like a cyber lab.
Gotcha. Okay. Staff Sergeant Umar?
Yeah, so a day in my job as like more of the Army software developer, we come in and our team has like a daily stand-up, just going over what we intend to do for the day. I work a lot of times of making like software and applications for the Windows operating system. So I use a lot of Visual Studio, like the program itself, Visual Studio, and sometimes I work with a different IDE, Visual Studio Code, but mostly just trying to debug a lot of my code that I make, and making unit tests and things like that for the projects that I've worked on and are working on day to day.
Okay, so Visual Studio is your primary software coding tool?
Yes, it is.
And is that a Microsoft product? I can't remember.
It is. It is a Microsoft product.
Okay.
It's a little less popular than, I think Visual Studio Code is like boomed now. So like everybody kind of is using that for software development.
Okay, great. Thank you. Landy, could you tell us a bit about what your day involves at work and tasks and projects and tools you use?
Sure. So I will say that my current position, I recently accepted it, so I'm 2 months in. So my day right now doesn't typically look like what my day would typically look like. So I can tell you a little bit of what I'm doing now, but prior to this position, I'll probably give you a little more about that, because that will probably answer your question a little better. So right now, as I'm in the Cybersecurity Innovation and Technology Office at the FDA. And right now, I am doing a lot of implementation and visionary work regarding some programs that we're putting in place for our office. So my day right now is meeting a lot of stakeholders, internal stakeholders at FDA in this new current role, as well as sitting in on their ideation sessions, so we can kind of talk about, some of their ideas and how we can help them mature to prototype stage. Now, prior to coming to this position, I worked, I was the director of the Office of Innovation for FDA. And so we did a lot of things with robotics, a lot of prototyping, a lot of white papers, serving FDA and collaborating with external partners to FDA. And so a lot of my day would be sitting with, we call them customers, but they are FDA employees in other areas of FDA, just kind of brainstorming and just writing all over the walls, because our innovation lab, right on the walls, we have writing paint on the walls. And so we were just literally just kind of sketch out ideas, throw them up on the whiteboard and see what's possible, in hopes to get them into prototype so that we could test to see whether or not FDA could bring them into their production environment. So a lot of my day is allowing people to think big, allowing people to exist in the space of possibility, to see what is actually possible based off of the many policies and the many security constraints that we have. So that's kind of what my day as an innovation professional looks like.
Okay, great. Michelle, could you tell us a bit about what your day is like in projects and so forth?
Sure. So what we do at the institute that I work at is that we study a thing called bioinformatics, which is basically a blending of biology and computer science together. So we use computers to analyze biological data. And primarily the kind of data that we analyze is DNA sequence. So inside all of the cells in our bodies is this stuff called DNA, which has all of the instructions for making a human being. So in the DNA is all of our genes, and the genes they do things like describe what kind of hair color we'll have, what kind of eye colors we'll have, how tall we'll be, things like that. And so we try to understand, study the DNA sequences of lots of different organisms, lots of different species, to try to understand how that DNA is giving the instructions to these organisms to make them be the way they are. And so what I do is I use a lot of the different analysis tools for curating this DNA sequence data. And I also work to produce a lot of data standards so that when scientists all over the world generate this kind of data, they can share it with each other in ways that makes it easy to use by other scientists. So that way we can bring the power of computational resources to bear on all of this data together. And that helps us generate hypotheses about how things work in biology and test those hypotheses in the computer systems. I also spend a good bit of time teaching. So a big part of what I do is teach. And at my campus, the University of Maryland, Baltimore, that is the campus that has all the professional schools of the University System of Maryland. So we don't have undergraduates there, but we have graduate students and medical students and dental students and students who have already finished their bachelor's degrees. And so that's who I teach. I also do a good bit of K through 12 outreach as well too, with schools and cooperation with schools and other programs around Baltimore City.
Like you're doing tonight.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, when you say looking at DNA, I always imagine people using very powerful telescopes to look at the DNA. Is that does your work involve any of that?
No. Are you thinking so microscopes maybe to look at the DNA? Yes and no. Generally, what we do is not so much visualization of the DNA itself, but really trying to understand the sequence. So the basic chemical structure of DNA is such that it has these made up of these components called bases, and there's 4 different bases, and understanding the sequence of those bases along DNA molecules inside our cells helps us to understand what genes are in there and what those genes might be doing.
Great. Thank you. Charity, could you tell us about what you do during the day and tasks and projects that you're working on?
Sure. Well, I don't necessarily have a typical day, but I'll try and describe to the best of my ability. So the tools that I really need to use every day is just tools that help me communicate. Because what I do day to day is to help and to partner with industry and to work with government to build rules on responsible behavior in space. And so what that means is right now, space, there's not a lot of rules up there. Imagine if it's a highway and there's no red lights and there's no traffic patterns. And we're trying to make sure there's more predictability in space because let's face it, there are a lot of satellites right now orbiting Earth today. So it's my responsibility to work with a team of professionals around the world in different countries to offer ideas and solutions to governments and to industry to build best practices of how we should act in space, what laws do we need, what regulation do we need, what policies do we need to develop. And I got to tell you, my engineering degree and my science background has really helped me explain a very technical thing, which space is highly technical, but we really need to build these rules of the road. And so communicating those to the public and also to policymakers is very important. So to translate from engineering speak to policy speak, that is a skill set that one needs in this sort of business. So day to day, I will be talking to people, I will be planning, I will be researching, I will be writing, I will be speaking. For example, today I was guest lecturing at George Washington University, and tomorrow I'll be chairing a group of industry experts to support the Federal Aviation Administration's Commercial Space Transportation Advisory Committee, a long name for ComStack. So ComStack is a group of industry experts who provide insights and suggest solutions to the FAA on commercial launch and how to keep that safe. So it's a variety of things. It's really exciting, and it's really important to understand both the technical aspect, but to be able to communicate it.
Now, when we spoke, your company had a test project, ELSA, I believe it was called. How did ELSA go?
Excellent. Thank you for asking. ELSA launched, and this is our company's first satellite to orbit Earth. And it is a satellite ELSA-D, so it stands for End of Life Services by Astroscale demonstration. And what this is going to do is it brought up its own kind of piece of debris with it, and it's attached to it, and it's practicing detaching and reattaching to it. So what we can do is use ELSA later on to capture dead objects in orbit, failed satellites, and bring them down safely, deorbit them after their lives are complete, after their mission is done. So we have started this demonstration this summer, and it's going to take a few months to get through the demonstration, but so far everything's looking great.
That's great to hear. Brenda, can you tell us a bit about what you do during the day, typical projects, tasks, so forth?
Yes. Majority of my day, I do a lot of design, so a lot of calculations, prepare plans, reports, and permit applications for the project. And sometimes I also do site visit, which is to go to the site to observe the existing condition before the project happens. I also do some of the inspections on the construction site just to make sure everything goes accordingly as the plan, and I'll make sure the quality of the end product is good. I do a lot of stormwater management projects. So for what stormwater management do is whenever we build any kind of impervious area on the ground, can be buildings, parking lot, any kind of pavement, then the rainwater cannot infiltrate through the pavement, or it will infiltrate really, really slowly, which will have more runoff running down from the surface, which will create a large risk for like flooding, and also it reduces the reservoir surcharging for the water for the aquifer underneath the underground. So that's very important whenever they have a project that involves with installing pavements that you will need to do stormwater management. So I get involved with all different kinds of projects. So it can be a pump station project, it can be a reservoir project, it can also be any kind of facility, if like a school or a senior center. I also did some site layout design, which one of the projects I worked on is to do a dog park study, which is it's really fun. So majority of the software that I use to perform my work will be AutoCAD, sometimes MicroStation. It's based on what the clients need, what they want, what kind of format they're looking for. I also use ArcGIS. It's mapping to for you to collect all the information and also do some kind of calculations within ArcGIS. And I also use many other different kind of hydrology and hydraulic softwares.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, Archie, you've developed or you worked on making your own robotic arm. You want to talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure. So most of my day does consist of school, but apart from that, I also do projects that use technology and modern day technology, basically, that improves and develops solutions for real world problems, and specifically medical problems, because that is the field that I'm interested in. But one of the major projects that I've developed so far is the artificial intelligence powered prosthetic arm. And it's a highly functional and very affordable prosthetic that utilizes 3D printing technology, low-cost electronics, and also artificial intelligence in order to make it both functional and affordable. Usually prosthetics that are that effective and efficient in the market are tens of thousands of dollars, but this prototype that I developed was developed under $100. So this is the approximated cost of the product. And right now I'm working with a organization and I'm leading a team of developers and technicians to get that product out into the market and to make it as accessible and as cheap as possible. So that's currently what's going on. But I do like to develop projects like that apart from my schoolwork and my school journey as well.
So how many developers or how many people are working with you on this project?
It's approximately 5 to 7 people that I'm leading right now. I'm titled the project lead for the project, and I have to see basically what the machine learning model that is developed is doing and how to integrate all of the technology into the prototype.
Have you heard of a company or organization called Enable?
No, I haven't.
Look, I have to connect them. They use 3D printing for hands, low-cost hands for people in poor countries. So I'll have to connect you with them.
Yeah, please do let me know.
Okay.
I also published a research paper on this topic. It was the paper on early detection of it was the paper on the AI prosthetic in developing countries and how it could be more accessible and affordable in developing countries. So I would love to work with this organization.
Okay. Where was your paper published?
It was published at the World Research Library and presented at the International Conference of Science, Engineering, and Technology.
Very cool. I'd like each of you to talk about what you like most about your job and what you like least about your job. All right, let me start with Staff Sergeant Uma.
Right. So I like puzzles. I like challenges. I like issues. And I see my job as like receiving essentially a puzzle or an issue from like our clients or customers, and using my prowess in like developing and software design and software engineering to come up with a solution to their problem. So essentially, it's just taking a bunch of big problems and, for lack of better like terminology, throwing sort of like designing something and then building that software and throwing it at the problem until it works to a level that's sufficient for the customer, and making sure that it's also like secure so that when something does go wrong and the customer like has any like problems with what we've created, that it's not necessarily, it won't hinder them from doing what they need to do. So most of our customers are people in the government or fellow soldiers, right? So they might be in precarious situations, and they can't have software completely like go out on them or go dark, or not be able to have like a backup to pick up where that other piece of software left off. So that's solving those problems and those issues and sort of like tinkering is what I like most. I think of it kind of as like I'm a coding detective, and my clients give me like cases of like either a website or like a server, and I just hunt down ways to like solve that case. So that's what I like the most about my job.
Great. And the least?
The least I like is documentation. Just essentially, there's a saying that I have, that I stole from somebody else. I say words are hard, right? Speaking is not my strong suit, and writing is not my strong suit, but my team feels as if I am the documentation like expert. So that is not my favorite part, but because they think I'm better at it than most people on our team, they tend to put me on documentation more often than not, and I'm not a fan.
Okay. Tara, can you tell us what you like the most and the least about your job?
Sure. I kept contemplating what do I like the least, but there's nothing that I really don't like about my job. I think
that's great to
I'm very
hear.
fortunate in that. However, my favorite part is the traveling. We travel so much internationally. So my program is international programs, to be more specific. So we kind of work on something for a while, and then we're going on a TDY assignment, and it could be 3 months, it could be 2 months. Like we're just kind of, you get away from the office setting, the same kind of people, and you're always eating different foods and different things like that. So it's nice to kind of be in different settings, speaking with different people, making different relationships that you can always utilize, you can always kind of reference back to, and gain so much more knowledge than you would just kind of in a day-to-day setting. So I'm very fortunate for that. And I think that's what I enjoy the most about it. And I also enjoy my team. Everyone is of different age brackets, different, knowledge base, different backgrounds. So you get a little bit of everything. If there's a special coding language that you always wanted to kind of dip into and really try, there's someone on the team that you can kind of sit with for the day and say, is there a way that I could split my time today with so and so, and they could show me a little bit of it? And my managers um, are pretty great leaders in that, and they're like, sure, we have enough to let you do that today. You can sit and learn. Say you're not familiar with Python, you may be able to sit and learn a bit more of Python, Ansible. There's different things like that. So
What are some of the places you've been?
so primarily Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So we prepare to go there a lot. So
Okay, thank you. Landy, what do you like most and least about your job? And you can talk about either your current job or your prior job, since you've only been in your job 2 months.
Sure, no problem. So what I like most, I had two competing things that I like most about my job. The first one being because I'm a natural problem solver. I'm a trained computer programmer. My early parts of my career was software development. I developed software and systems and stuff. And so I now naturally think very much so in that logical progression in my mind. So when people come in with problems or a mess of, I don't know what this is and I don't know how to fix it, I don't know what it is, I love sitting them down and just tell me about what it is you're trying to do. And in my mind, I'm naturally building everything that they're saying to me. I love that part of taking a mess and creating something from it, which is a huge part of my job, which makes me enjoy my job. The other part of my job is because I'm in innovation, I get to learn about a whole lot of cool new things, like how people are doing new things and how they're solving problems in new ways. And so I'm always learning, and I'm always in a posture of, tell me more. What is this? Let's find out more. And my team is very much so in that posture as well of, did you hear about this? And it's not just the cool things, but it's the things that pinpoint directly to an issue or to a problem that fixes it in such a magnificently intelligent way. It's amazing. So I would say like those two are the competing things that I really enjoy about what I do. But then the flip side of innovation is, at least the way that we're structured, is we take that really bold, bright idea and we make a prototype being that it's not yet in production. So it's really just a test plastic thing that just proves the concept of whatever it is we were attempting to fix, right? We take that prototype and we then hand it over to the people that came with the challenge so that they could now sell it to wherever they're coming from and try to get budget for it. So I don't get to see the end product. I don't get to see what all this work now contributed to, because we're now on to the next problem. So I don't like just handing over a prototype, not knowing what the baby is going to look like when it actually comes out. Right. But that's really the crux of innovation. I'm still getting used to it, but that's the least part. I don't like that part at all.
Yeah, it's hard to give up what you created. Yes, I understand. Brenda, could you please talk about what you like the most and least about your job?
So same. I also like to be a problem solver. So I really enjoy learning a lot of different stuff as well, because I do stormwater management. So I can get involved with all kinds of projects. It can be a facility. So I can work with mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and also architects. I get to work with architects. I also have some projects that I can work with dream design group. So I get to expose to a lot of different fields within the civil engineering. So I get to learn a lot of their own stuff. And also I really enjoy the fact that the stuff that I build can really benefit the public. Like one of the projects I was working on was a reservoir project that can serve over 145,000 residents in Baltimore County. So just having the thought that something that I participated and it got built and it can actually benefit the public, that I really enjoy about that. So the stuff that I least enjoy about my job. So for my job, because I'm on the design consulting part, so I not only prepare the plans, do the designs, and I also have to do permitting, because you need permits to be able to legally build and construct your work. And permits can be involved with a lot of different agencies, can be very time consuming, and it's a lot of paperwork to do. It's not like I don't like doing that. I have to take a break from it. Sometimes I get to mixed with like design job and permit job, design job, permit job. I just cannot work on like 7 permit job at the same time. But overall, I really enjoy my current job. I think it really fulfilling my passion for the STEM industry.
Yeah, I understand. I work for Social Security Administration, and I understand how you get frustrated dealing with bureaucracy. That's easy to understand.
Yeah, and sometimes they already have a contractor on paper, and they're just waiting to get all the permits ready to get built. So you will get pressured to get all your permits approved.
Okay, thank you. Charity, what do you enjoy most and least about your job?
So I really like being part of something that is innovative, but also really helping solve a big problem, like one of the biggest problems, space debris. So because we use space and satellites that orbit Earth for national security means, for civil and commercial means as well, for our economy and our way of life, and even for exploration, I just feel really proud to contribute to something making the environment better. So that's a kind of a point of pride. I also love the people of the space community. I mean, they are doing a space job is a lot of fun. Let's just say, I haven't met anyone in this business that is bored or isn't really into it. We're all enthusiasts. So with everyone so excited, it's really fun to be around that energy and from a diverse group of folks, young and old, all around the planet. The things that are challenges about this position is our headquarters is in Tokyo, Japan. So I have a lot of early morning phone calls and a lot of late evening phone calls. So it can disrupt my daily routine, especially with the family. But I think the positives outweigh the negatives here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Michelle, can you tell us what you enjoy most about your job and what you could possibly live without?
Sure. So I really enjoy the people that I work with, and I really enjoy the constant nature of science and biology, that I'm always learning new things. I was like, you go to a seminar, you read a new publication, and you're learning something new every day. And I really like that sense of discovery that always goes on all the time. I also really like the teaching aspect of my job, and particularly I like teaching high school and middle school students, and I enjoy developing activities that can be fun, but also at the same time as they're fun, they're actually teaching something about biology or cells or DNA and how it all works. So I like those things very much. What I don't like so much is grant proposal writing. So the way that people get money to do the projects that they want to do at universities is that you have to write what are called grant applications or grant proposals. And it's basically asking usually a federal agency, a government agency, to give you money in order to do the work that you want to do. And so you have to write this long document that justifies why what you want to do is important and why you're a good person to do that work. And it's there's always what happens is that you're writing and trying to get it ready, and that there's always a deadline. And always what happens is that right before the deadline, it's this terrible crunch time of trying to get everything finished in time. And those days right before a deadline are always so awful. So that pressure cooker of getting the grant applications in is always hard. And the pressure too of because if we don't submit the grants, and if we don't get the grants, because it's a contest, so our grant is going in with a bunch of others, and we have, it's somebody's going to win and other people are not going to win. And if we don't get enough grants, then that means we don't have money to pay the people who are working with us. And so that would be very bad. So there's a lot of pressure to keep the research going, keep the projects going by getting enough funding.
Right, got it. Okay. I'd like each of you to talk about why you chose your fields, what interests you about STEM, and any role models you might have had. I'll start with Archie. What interests you about STEM, and did you have any role models?
Yeah, sure. So I've been interested in STEM, or I've been exposed to STEM since the age of 4. I'm in a very STEM regular area, and I've been participating in clubs, competitions, and activities that are related to STEM since the age of 4. So I've just kind of been brought up in that STEM environment. All my schools, my elementary, middle, and high schools, were all STEM like circulated. So it was a major part of what the community around me cared about. So that kind of instilled me and kind of developed my passion for STEM. Currently, my passion is to find a career in cardiology. I would love to work in the cardiac fields and become a cardiac surgeon. As for role models, I've always been very inspired by Mary Curie. She was one of the first female scientists, and she was the first to get a Nobel Peace Prize. So I was very inspired by her, and she was kind of what started me in developing an interest in biology too. So I think she was one of my role models while growing up, and she still is, obviously. But I think that's kind of how I chose my field in STEM. And that's kind of what keeps me interested in STEM. It's just the environment around me. So I think that environment really helped me.
Great. Landy, what inspired you or directed you to the field you're in and your interest in STEM?
So what directed me towards this field? So I took a computer science class my freshman year of college. I was initially very interested in going into law, and I took a computer science class and fell in love with coding. And ever since then, that's all I wanted to do. Coding kind of zens me out. Some people say it's stressful for them, but if you give me something that is not working, and if it's missing a symbol or something, I'm the one to find it, and it completely calms me. So I discovered that in my freshman year of college, and I stuck with it. So I graduated there with my computer science undergrad. Role models, honestly, a lot of my role models were women who were close to me. So like my mom, other women who just kind of persevered through whatever life circumstance was. I spent a lot of time just kind of looking at them up close. And so I would say a lot of my role models came from women that were in my community, that I locally knew, that they were close to touch, that I saw, just pushing through whatever challenges, whatever struggles they may have had. And I think that that really gave me a lot of encouragement just to kind of move forward and push through some of the barriers that I would later face in life.
Okay, thank you. Tara, can you describe why you got into your field, what interests you about STEM?
Sure. I think what interests me the most about STEM is how diverse it is. I have many friends and classmates going through college, heavily involved with STEM. We did STEM clubs and things like that. But just to see the various majors that were still included in STEM, it wasn't just, only excluded to, just engineers or software design. I had tons of people that majored and double majored in various mathematical majors, some people that did biology and still found their way in accounting and still found their ways into STEM and how they fit. So it's like one big puzzle, and we all just kind of fit together in our different ways. And that's why I really enjoy STEM. And it really attracts me to stay involved in the STEM community and encourage youth to find what they like in STEM and kind of progress through that, move around, try different things. And then I guess why I chose my field, primarily, I love the cutting edge technology, artificial intelligence, things like that kind of spark my attention all the time. I always think like, wow, as I was younger, moving up, there's always like getting new technology and new toys where I never wanted to use a manual. I wanted to figure it out myself. I wanted to, open up a brand new gaming system. And how do you know everything by day 2? I mean, I just feel like the generations are only getting better. You see 4-year-olds with, tablets, and they're able to learn with the applications, and they're able to put a puzzle together just and it can be a coding puzzle,
Mhm.
and they're learning that quickly. And so I think that's why I want to stay in this field, and that's why I enjoy it, and that's why I chose it.
Thank you. Staff Sergeant Umar?
Yeah, so what interested me about STEM, I was good at math. I found math easy, so I kind of just fell into it.
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily like join any clubs or get pushed towards math, even though I was like kind of good at it and easily coasting in like middle school and high school, because I was a girl. But I was also good at sports, so you kind of get pushed a little more for sports, I think, as a girl sometimes. But I liked taking things apart and putting them back together. Electronics, like I said, opening up my gaming console and like being able to figure out what everything does before anybody else does, and telling them, "Oh, hey, did you know about this? I found that out last night." Like those were things that just sort of sparked my interest, and it wasn't until I got into high school where I had more options to choose classes that I actually like took some classes with more math essentially, and got into like pre-calc and some coding classes and Oracle based database class and stuff like that I actually got to explore more, and figured out I liked this. I liked the problems that came along with it and trying to figure it out. And I chose the field, first going into civil engineering and then into more like software design, uh, because it was fun and I think a little easier for me. So I think that it just because it was natural and that's how my brain worked, I I wanted to like keep going down that path.
Okay, great. Thank you. Brenda, could you please tell us what interests you about your field in STEM and why you chose the path you're on?
Sure. So I think I am very influenced by my parents about STEM, because both of them have a career in the STEM industry. So I was just very interested in science, and when I get to the middle school, I grow largely interested in chemistry and biology. So that's why when I tried to pick a engineering major, I picked environmental engineering because it utilized both chemistry and biology those knowledge bases are very heavily molded in this major. So
What did your parents do, or what do they do?
my dad is actually a civil engineer.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So
Are they still in China?
yeah, they're still in China. Yeah. So I was like, when I was little, every time when we have the Chinese New Year, we actually play. It's not a drinking game, but it's a math game. So I think I was just very culturally influenced by them. So yeah, I think it's just natural for me to be involved in the STEM industry.
Great, thank you. Charity, could you discuss why you chose the field, what interests you about STEM?
Sure. Well, I too loved math as a child, but it was really a moment in grade 6 and in going into middle school that I realized I wanted to be an astronaut. So, as one does, you try and pursue the path that is right for you, but also gets you in the pool of folks that might be selected as an astronaut. So that's pretty much why I joined the military and took engineering as well. And I also love the science of things moving. So how do rockets blast off, and how do airplanes and helicopters work? And that was always exciting to me to learn how the internal combustion engine worked and things like that. So really it was that love for space, and it took me down an interesting path along the way.
And would you still like to go into space?
I don't know. I'm sure if someone paid my way up there, I'd go for one of those short hops. But yeah, I don't know about that. I would prefer now to help make space more safe and to help write the rules and what we want to do in space.
Okay, great. Thank you. Michelle, what attracted you about or your field or directed you towards where you are now?
So at a very young age, I became interested in science fiction very much. So reading novels and watching movies and science fiction TV shows. And I was just fascinated by all of the ideas and interesting, things that were shown in these TV shows or movies or books, and just the possibilities, like the endless possibilities of science and the future. And I was also influenced a lot by my father, who was a scientist and who, always sent the message to me that anything I wanted to do, I could do as long as I, worked hard at it, then anything was possible. And at first I was very, very interested in space and like Charity and astronomy. And I started out in college as a double major in astronomy and physics. And I very quickly realized that I didn't like physics all that much. And so after about a year, I decided to change majors. And my father actually suggested, why don't you try biology? Just try it out, see what you think. And I tried biology and I loved it. And I fell in love and that was it. And I've been in various aspects of biology ever since. And it's been great.
What area of science did your father specialize in?
He was in microbiology.
Great. I'd like everybody to talk a bit about if they feel they've encountered challenges being a woman in STEM and what they would say to a young girl about why they should follow a STEM path. Charity, I'll start with you.
Things are quite a bit different from 25 years ago when I entered engineering in college. The challenges that I had were based upon my occupation as well. I was in the military. There was 10% females in the military college. So I was one of 2 females in my engineering class out of a group of 30. And then, of course, you go into operations. I was an air navigator in the back of an aircraft and probably 1 or 2 females in that squadron. So I always got used to that in a way. And it was only recently when I entered industry after I retired that I saw some of the same patterns and I got mad. I'm like, no, it's been 20 years. Something has to change. And I tell you, the young professionals coming into the space business today, they are switched on and there's so much talent out there. And so I really want to encourage girls, young professional women, gender minorities to really think about space and STEM as your career path, because we need you. We have a lot of problems in this world and we need problem solvers and those that are innovative and know technical solutions to those problems. So I just want to build a welcoming committee to anyone who's interested in joining STEM programs and STEM careers, especially space. Arms wide open. We want you in our industry and we hope that you join us.
Great. Thank you. Brenda, can you talk about and the answer can be no, it doesn't have to be, but if you felt you encountered any additional challenges being a woman in STEM and what you would say to encourage a young girl to go into STEM?
Yeah, I would say like overall the engineering design industry is nowadays it's pretty friendly and it's very embracing for female engineers. But I do encounter some of the challenges whenever I go on the site to do inspection. Because as a design engineer, I have to make sure the quality and the product that the contractor is building is per design. So sometimes I do have to tell them if they did something that is not according to the design or not according to the plan. So you do definitely get overwhelmed and pressured underneath of the similar situations. But I would say just be assertive and speak up to yourself, and you will get people respect to you. So I would definitely encourage more young girls to get involved in the engineering industry, also the STEM industry. Just as what Charity said, like we need you, like we need more female engineers to get involved in this industry. Plus, if you are passionate about science, passionate about STEM, and you also hold a kind of responsibility of the public welfare, then I think STEM engineering will be a very good career path for you, because you can actually build stuff that people can use and benefit for their daily life. So join us.
Okay, thank you. Landy, do you feel that you've encountered any additional challenges being a woman in STEM, and what would you tell a young girl why she should consider a STEM path?
You know, throughout the years, I have answered this question so differently every time. And I think it's as I am maturing more and more in my career path, I think my answer changes. Yes, absolutely. I have encountered several challenges, being sometimes the only female in the room, being the only minority female in the room, and the assumption that since I am the only woman in the room, then I am therefore only there for administrative purposes and not, contributing to the technical conversation. And so I think that the environment has changed somewhat. You're seeing a little more women, more representation these days, but we still have so far to go. So I think if I were to answer this question now, I think it's important for the next generation of young women coming into STEM. Absolutely. STEM is a great industry for us to be in, not just because we need more females, but because there is a way that women think and the way we process and what we bring to a solutions table that absolutely is necessary. And so for those reasons, I tell young girls, sure, you are going to encounter challenges. You are going to encounter individuals that may prejudge you before you even walk in the room, just off the fact that you're a woman. But the biggest thing that you have to remember is who you are and what you have to give. Sometimes you can doubt yourself and you can stay silent in a corner, but it's important to recognize that you are there for a purpose and you have value. So what I tell young women is absolutely go for it. Not just because I'm a female and I can do it, but because it needs me. And you have to always remember for yourself as well that it needs you. So your presence is necessary and make yourself heard. That's the way I answer that question now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Staff Sergeant Umar, do you feel, especially being in the military, did you encounter or have you encountered additional challenges being a woman in STEM? And what would you tell to encourage a young girl to follow a STEM path?
I definitely have encountered some challenges. And any minority, but especially women, the primary advice that I would give is that, you do belong there. As a young adult, I struggled with whether or not I should continue my path in engineering or, go down in non-STEM world. But I wound up in the Army and in software development, which very not a lot of women are in the Army to begin with, and then not a lot of women are in software engineering or design and whatnot. So, but I love it and it's cool. So it's if it's something that you are passionate about, then pursue it. Your difference in thinking, your different background leads to innovation and a different way forward. And we are encountering new problems and new challenges that require great minds. And we can't do that if we limit the population of minds that are out there, right? So I would say that, like, specifically for software engineering, computer science, that it actually affects a lot more industries than just, like, computer science, because you wind up working with people who are in education or finance or entertainment or what have you, right? And you make software for them. You make apps on people's phones, like, that have nothing to do with computer science, but they're going to use it in a way that helps better their lives in some way, shape, or form. So I would encourage, like, any young girls, any minorities to, like, pursue it and, take on those challenges, because more and more people are getting into STEM, that are minorities, and there is a community that is willing to help you and to be uplifting and are in it together. So
Okay. Great, thank you. Tara, could you address those questions, please?
Yes. I would say particularly right now, I have not encountered it, but I have before. At one point, I was an intern, and I saw just having male leaders, certain things you see as they gravitate towards other males. And you have to find a way to always kind of squeeze yourself in, or kind of make sure that you're heard in the room. During meetings, going around the room, if you didn't hear your name called, you make sure that you kind of make sure that they're aware of what you bring to the table. And to piggyback off of what most of you guys have already said, just kind of making sure they know how much value that you add to the team. So I know a lot of times it's uncomfortable for many, but sometimes we have to be uncomfortable to find comfort. So I don't want anyone to feel discouraged moving forward in their careers. So I want everyone to always know that there's a place for them. You're there for a reason. So just always speak up if you can. And there's always great ways to do it and ways to implement it. So yeah, I think that answers it.
Okay, thank you. And Michelle, your thoughts on the questions?
Sure. So I've been very fortunate in that I've luckily been surrounded by people who are always very supportive, and I never actually felt that I was being judged based on being a woman unfairly, and so I feel very fortunate for that. And I think that a lot of that is because so many women blazed the trail before me, and dealt with those challenges and helped to start changing the environment and just the social landscape there. I have certainly still to this day see patterns that see kind of so I mentioned earlier that our work involves biology plus computer science, and so we have people trained in both of those areas, and we still see the vast majority of the people in our group who are computer scientists are men, and the vast majority of the people who are on the biology end of the spectrum are women. And so those divisions still, those biases, those unevenness still exist. And I think, though, that it's really, really important for young women to not let those kinds of things stand in the way. So if you're the only woman in the room, or you're the only woman software engineer, I know it's easy to say and maybe not as easy to do, but don't let that be something that stops you. I mean, you, as others have said, and I completely agree with, you have a voice, you have a value, and you don't want to stop. You don't want to let anything stop you from making your contribution.
Great, thank you. Archie, I'd like you to kind of end the program talking a little bit about your organization you've created, STEMify Girls, I believe it's called.
Sure, yeah. I am the founder and CEO of a nonprofit organization called STEMify Girls. And we aim to close and to contribute to the gender gap of STEM fields. So we aim to provide the necessary resources for young girls and minority cultures to thrive and to empower them in STEM. So how we do this is we conduct hands-on activities mainly through the DMV area, DC, Washington, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And we have hosted many events so far. And the typical event that we host are hands-on activities, which are basically a lecture or a speech or a lesson followed by some sort of activity or some sort of hands-on experiment that they can actually see how the STEM concepts are beyond the classroom subject. They're not just something you learn and then forget. They're something that can be applied in their daily lives and that they can see around them every day. I feel like that's one of the impacted things that can really make a change in STEM fields. If we get people to see the importance of STEM in their daily lives, and how it's found around them, I think they'll understand the relevance of STEM and why it's important to continue to thrive in this field. So, one example of an event that we conducted was a Raspberry Pi Jam. And a Raspberry Pi is basically the heart of a computer. It's a mini computer without a screen or keyboard. So, it's basically the heart of the computer. And what we did was we taught the young girls about the Raspberry Pi. And then we let them experiment with it and with Scratch coding. And we provided them with Raspberry Pis and allowed them to control traffic signals, which are found outside every day whenever they look. So they were able to relate to their daily lives and to see how it was used in their world. So I think that kind of effect really impacts their perspectives about STEM.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's a very impressive group. Organization. I want to try, if I can get this to work technically, to share a short video. Let's see if I can get it to work. Okay. Is this, doesn't look like, hold on a second. Stop sharing. That doesn't look right. Let me try this one more time, and if not, okay, hold. Okay, here we go. And where's, oh, it went to the end.
Experiment time! Topics in Science with Sophie are all about finding science all around you. You don't have to be in a lab with a lab coat and a PhD to do science. You certainly can, it's one way. But there's science everywhere. Tear production is the job of the lacrimal gland. What do our bodies do after we get cut? Gum gets softer as you chew it. Why? I'm a woman in science and comedy, and I have a lot of science role models. I watched science TV growing up, and I loved it. But there was not a show with a science role model who was a woman, who looked like me. So I decided, I'm going to make it myself. Representation matters. It's this scary but simple idea that if you can't see it, you can't be it. It's time to add women's voices to the mix. My writing team is made of scientists, educators, comedians, and they're all women. And it wasn't hard to find them. Smart women are all around you. It's really important to me to elevate voices that have traditionally gone unheard. And as women in STEM and comedy, we have all experienced the implicit biases. We've lived that life. And so that fuels us to create the change we want to see in the world and create an equitable future for the next generation. I say the show is for girls and everyone, and that's on purpose. My first audience is girls, right at that age where they start to lose confidence in themselves, and studies show that's as early as age 6. I want girls to grow up knowing that they are smart, curious, brave, funny, and they have everything they need to do science in their daily lives. My second audience is boys of the same age, because it's equally important for boys to have female role models. So those boys will grow up knowing that women are smart, curious, funny, brave, and have everything they need to be scientists and do science every day. So we are all part of this change together. I created this show to be something I wish I had had and to be the change I wanted to see in the world. And the fact that it is working, that I meet 10-year-old girls who say to me, "Thank you for reminding me I can be an engineer." It energizes me to move forward with this dream of mine because I know it can work and I know that we can impact millions and millions of kids.
All right, so that was a short preview from Sophie Schrand. She actually participated in the festival a couple years ago, and as she said, she has created this great comedy science show to inspire young people and especially young girls to follow a STEM path. And hopefully you can find it on YouTube, and it's an amazing program. Please share it with young girls you know, and the girls and their parents who are watching this, either now or in the future. Please check her out. I'd like to thank everyone who joined us today. You all are excellent role models for both young girls and young boys. This was a wonderful, inspiring discussion. Thank you so much for participating, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon. Take care.